Hello, everybody. My name is Ben Shaw. I'm very thankful to be here for the Between the Notes podcast. I'd like to thank the Parlour for hosting us, as always. I'm going to play a couple of songs for you tonight. These are all original tunes of mine. This first one is about playing late night sets at a bar for a little money. It's called The Late Set. On the edge of a parking lot, trying to find the strength to go in, so I can unburden my aching heart and my shift can begin. Let's play the late set on Thursday nights, playing songs that all sound the same. Strum guitar for the dim lights and hound dogs who think it's funny to mispronounce my name. Sip of whiskey is on my table, keeps my voice low, my head high. Next to a tip jar, a label that promises a love song for a five. Hasn't always been strip mall pubs in a town no one knows. Took a chance on a life I could love. I saw how far dreams could go. Played my hand down in New Orleans, kicked my ass to LA. Made my last stand in Kansas City, but they sent me crawling back to where I came. I thought I was made for the gamble, that I was ready for the game. It was more than I could handle, and besides, most clubs are the same anyway. So I settled for good enough, 'cause it gets me through the day. Tomorrow I know they'll be sure to come. Brighter nights are coming on my way. Stay mindful of the time I got left as I watch the bar start to close down. I got one more song to go in my set, and I hope that my soul will be found. Soon I'll be dining on city lights, beneath marquees with my name. For now I'm counting my money on the bar, eating cold chicken under green fluorescent shades. But I'm more than a bartender and a guitar on a stool, bigger than this untethered heart, singing about dreams like a fool. But I'm more than a bartender and a guitar on a stool, bigger than this untethered heart, singing about his dreams like a fool. I find a lot of my songs are about traveling. going somewhere, seeing something new, or the absence of it, being stuck. I think I always kind of had the bug for it. Being from a small state, Rhode Island, you're always about 2 seconds from being out of it. So I think your mind's just kind of always on that. And this song's about traveling. It's called Yellow Line. Well, I left my heart on Main Street last night, and I tipped my hat to the taxi's brake lights, and I thought about this old friend of mine as I made my way the commuter line. Tell me heaven can't wait for another day. I'll settle this towel, there'll be hella pay. So hop aboard and get my ticket stamped twice, 'cause I can't afford the fare to paradise. Oh, now there you go, sitting there watching me leave again. Here I go pretending that I'm never coming back. Maybe this time I think I'm gonna buy me a one-way ride instead. But you know all too well that I can't. Oh, I'm stuck behind the yellow line. I'm looking for my departure time and staring down what remains of the track. This train is packed with lost identity. Faces drawn like Rockwell memories. We're going now to find a life we can rebuild, and then we riding back home with our pockets half filled. I've been around this old town for way too long. There used to be a borderline, but now it's gone. Wish I could leave these broken smokestacks where they lay and turn their shattered bricks to golden road on my way. Oh, now there you go, sitting there watching me leave again. Here I go pretending that I'm never coming back. Maybe this time I think I'm gonna buy me a one-way ride instead. But you know all too well that I can't. Oh, I'm stuck behind the yellow line. I'm looking for my departure time and staring down what remains of the track. Now there you go, sitting there watching me leave again. Here I go pretending that I'm never coming back. Maybe this time I think I'm gonna buy me a one-way ride instead. But you know too damn well that I can't. Oh, I'm stuck behind the yellow line. I'm looking for my departure time and staring down what remains of the track. Thank you very much. So this next song is, I guess you're not supposed to have favorites or whatever, but this is one of my favorites. It was written a couple of years ago and is actually getting released this Friday on streaming platforms as a special single for an album that we got coming up in December. But this is one of those songs that I grew up, loving really good stories, really good songwriting, and when I found John Prine, it just kind of all made sense when I started listening to his music. And so I always kind of wanted to write a song in his spirit. I've always kind of been searching for that. And so when he died a couple of years ago, I was, in the middle of kind of trying to write something, and I just came up with this little line that I thought worked really well, and kind of spoke how he spoke, pretty simply, pretty effective language, not really going too far out there, and spoke to a life that wasn't my own, kind of what he used to do with Angel from Montgomery and other songs like that. So this song is about a middle-aged woman who works at a gas station. She's on the third shift, and she's thinking back, reminiscing about her lost loves, her regrets, her mistakes, and her time spent as a teenage beauty queen. And she's just thinking back on that young age and wishing that she could tell that young girl that she still has hope, she still has dreams, and that she can get there too. And the way she tells her is by telling her that she still has kept the dress. She tells her that I still put on the dress and tried to impress the girl in the mirror who knows she's worth more than this. I tell her it still fits, and if I wanted, I could quit this job and give her the world that she thought would exist. This one's called Madeline. I was a beauty queen at 17, planning life by quizzes in magazines, and now I hand out receipts for gasoline at the filling station off of exit 3, selling cigarettes and coffee rolls, the faded maps that show only local roads. Behind the glass in my booth all alone, I see that young girl reflected in an old woman's clothes. Oh, well, how can I tell Madeline that I think it's time she moved on? The better life that she had in mind for us, well, that fairy tale's all gone. I still put on the dress and try to impress the girl in the mirror who knows she's worth more than this. I tell her it still fits, and if I wanted, I could quit this job and give her the world that she thought would exist. Well, midnight comes as the cars all go. The only people around are on the radio. I try not to think of all the cash in the drawer, 'cause I ain't looking for that kind of trouble anymore. Oh, well, how can I tell Madeline that I I think it's time she moved on. It's not gonna turn out the way that you like, but it's good enough to carry you along. But I still put on the dress and try to impress the girl in the mirror who knows she's worth more than this. And tell her it still fits, and if I wanted, I could quit this job and give her the world that she thought would exist. And someday I'll wear it to work, and I'll put on my crown and twirl in the booth while I make change and do my routines for people heading through town. Then I'll blow 'em a kiss as they're pulling away. But I still put on the dress and try to impress the girl in the mirror who knows she's worth more than this. I tell her it still fits, and if I wanted, I could quit this job and give her the world that she thought would exist. Thank you. I think I got time for about one more song here, so I want to say thank you very much to Motif for having me. I really appreciate it. Great local magazine doing a lot for local artists, and especially thank you to the Parlour for having us here today. It really means a lot. You can catch me here a lot during the month for different things, and I mean they just have always been so supportive of local music and local musicians. So I'm going to play one more song for you. Like I said, this one's called Sailboats, and if you really like it, we just, back in April, put out an EP, a 7-song EP called 7 Songs, very inventive, but this is the last song on it, and this is one of those songs that, again, you know, kind of as a songwriter, you reach these kind of peaks and valleys, I mean, in any kind of creative pursuit, where for a long time you'll kind of be down, you're not really writing anything good, and then every once in a while something will come along that just like really works for you and is kind of really what you're trying to go for and what you're trying to say, and you just kind of nail it. And this song always felt like that because, you know, growing up on an island, I just always felt kind of stuck, kind of anchored to where I was. And then especially I have a day job, so working during the day and watching all these things happen, and being in Newport watching sailboats go and these big beautiful yachts going out to sea and the open ocean, and here I am stuck mowing lawns. Is, you know, it's just one of those things that you just kind of sit there thinking about where you could go. So I wrote the song Sailboats about that. Once again, my name's Ben Shaw. Thank you so much for listening today. You can find me at benjaminshawmusic.com, Instagram at benjaminshawmusic. Just around Rhode Island. So I see sailboats finding better shores, ships built with 3 masts or more. I see other men fat off the catch they bore, while I'm wondering how long I've been good for. Diesel from the harbor sticking my breath, it's pushing out what fresh air I had left. The salt water rust, the parts I need to fix this busted up machine. The current's full, but I try to keep the canvas clean. Suit sails were filled with hopes of reaching home, that storms will break and make way as you roam. But keep it land to your starboard side, be weary of the tide. I yell from my bar stool in this cold northeastern dive. I see sailboats finding better shores, Ships filled with 3 masts or more. I see other men fed off the catch they bore, while I'm wondering how long I've been good for. Well, my first year's on the coast, I saw ghosts about to crack, carrying storylines be-written on their backs. Not afraid of hauling cargo to try to find a different end. Here I am again. The cemetery near my house is getting full. Established names fill almost every row. Familiar faces leaving roses take traces of the stone, tending to the ground, plan to be below. I keep my eye up on the wind to take me out. Easterly comes through to get me south. I'll cut the mooring line and say goodbye to the shores. I move on to the deep and darkened waters where I belong. I see sailboats finding better shore, ships built with 3 masts or more. I see other men fed off the catch they bore, while I'm wondering how long that I'll see sailboats finding better shores, ships built with 3 masts or more. I'll see other men fed off the catch they bore, while I'm wondering how long that I'll be anchored for. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ben, for being on Between the Notes podcast today. And thank you to the sponsors. We want to shout out Rhode Island Indoor Karting, and we want to shout out Grace Ale Brewing. We want to shout out the Parlor. And I just wanted to, again, thank everybody for watching every week here Between the Notes, Mondays. Ben, you have had a really busy weekend.
Yes. Yeah.
I saw that you had a bunch of shows, and it's all related to this right here, right now, right? And
Right.
its culminating point.
Yeah, it seems like I made the joke on Instagram that I feel like I'm the unofficial artist in residence here at the Parlor.
Yeah, definitely you are. And you just had the Jazz Jam.
Yes. I run on the first Sunday of every month. I run the Jazz Jam. I'm besides being like a singer-songwriter, I started playing tenor saxophone, and I kept it through college. I kept playing it and pursuing jazz music. But, you know, while this is my kind of major focus, I still like to play jazz every once in a while and really like try to figure out how I can use that to bring a community together, because we have such a great community of jazz musicians around Rhode Island that really don't have many places that they can go to play and perform, and especially with the jazz thing, that as we try to do it, it's a very community focused thing. So it's very it's all ages, it's all abilities. We don't really bother with trying to cut each other down, and I think Gregory here at the Parlor really has brought a lot of that kind of community spirit to not only his bar but the music scene in general. So it's really nice to kind of partner with him and the Parlor at large to present that event.
Yeah, and of course it's connecting you with the other musicians here that, you know, are in the area, but they're also playing heavily here. For example, you just did a show on Saturday with Evening Sky Band.
Yeah. The guys in Evening Sky were another one of those bands that are just kind of in the jazz scene around here in general, and I had been such a big fan of their stuff for so long that I used to go, see them at shows and everything, and I knew Joe Potenza, the bass player, from just playing gigs kind of around town, and then Gino Rosati, the guitar player, I would know him, and then through them met Eric and Chris, and knew the band and really loved the band, and then I had released a jazz album kind of. To be honest, at the beginning of the kind of quarantine period, it was supposed to come out. We were supposed to have a release show. I did, my first jazz album, and then we never got to do it. But one of the tracks on there kind of caught Joe Potenza's ear, and he said I think we really mesh well musically, because we both love Bill Frisell, Charles Lloyd, Brian Blade, and the Fellowship. So that sensibility really fed into this partnership.
Nice. And so with the people that you perform with, right, most of these people are in other bands.
Yes.
And you yourself are in many bands. Do you want to shout out any of the acts you perform with?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much I'm just sort of for hire. If you need a sax player, speaking about exactly, hey, BenjaminShawMusic.com, hit me up at the contact page. But no, for instance, Gregory performs with this great band Animal Face. I've sat in with them before. I play with this Beatles cover band called Funky Submarine that we're actually playing here at the Parlor again in residence this coming Saturday. Evening Sky, I sit in with them, but I sit in with a bunch of different other bands, just kind of here and there. If I know a guy and he sees, he or she sees me walking in with my saxophone, and sometimes you get the oh yeah, come on, which is one of the nice things about being a saxophone player. There's not many horn players that are kind of around the scene, but it's been really been a blessing to kind of continue that and to keep doing it, because I feel like what I really want to do is, focus so much on my singer-songwriter stuff and kind of the performance and the songwriting and the playing of that. But this kind of gives me, you're always looking for those little unique things that you can get. And I think the saxophone kind of helps me just be a little bit different, gives me a different timbre, a different sense of melody maybe, or just especially with the jazz background, a different way of thinking about the tunes and who I invite on stage. For instance, my buddy Ryan Cowell will play vibraphone for a lot of the stuff that we have, and he'll play auxiliary percussion, kind of give you that weird Paul Simon sort of Tom Waits. I mean, leaning more so towards Tom Waits than Paul Simon, leaning mostly towards Tom Waits, but it's with the weirdness and the kind of clanging and stuff. But it's those things that I think really shaped my just trying to find a different approach to it.
The X factor they call
Right.
it.
Right.
But yeah, getting back to you playing guitar, the song that you were doing,
Madeline, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
that song I saw you, and you said you're recording it, right?
Yeah, we so last September, I had gathered all the material kind of over quarantine. I had started writing a couple of songs, and they just seemed to all fit really well together as I was kind of writing them and assembling them, and I developed this narrative arc for them. And I said, like, well, I had at the time kind of put in the can about 5 or 6 tunes for this other album, 7 songs that I released in April, and I had all this other material, and I'm like, it really felt like it was a kind of an evolution of my songwriting capabilities and just like my kind of sonic textural sense. So I got all my buddies together and I was like, hey, I'm going to book some studio time. Let's do this. Here are the 8, here are the 9 songs or whatever. I think it's 9. Yeah. I don't why I would not know that by my own album. I don't know.
From 7 to 9.
But it's exactly. We're going up. Next one's 11.
Oh, okay.
It's but it's so I contacted. I had worked with Bradford Krieger over at Big Nice Studio on the jazz album. I'm like, hey man, I got this idea and I just need a weekend. So we booked a weekend. Like a couple months down the road, we rehearsed the tunes and we recorded it last September. So it's going to be my first full-length album that's going to come out in December, and the first single is the same. It is Madeline, which carries the same title as the album itself. So it's going to be It's going to be a full-length album and a novella that comes out with it. There's
Wonderful.
like a 17,000 word novella.
Hopefully you'll be doing a release party here.
Well, that's the thing. It's like I've been trying to like figure out, because we did my last release party here, of course.
7 songs. Yeah.
We released 7 songs here, and it was great. And I've just been kind of like looking for like a really unique experience, because it's the way it is. Like I'm really trying to focus on how to make everything that I do kind of part of the art piece itself, as pretentious and dumb as that sounds. But
no, I totally respect. Like
Yeah.
I look at you as like a really serious musician,
Thank
an
you.
artist that has kind of an image, of brand, like a tone, something that you're trying to convey to your audience, but also to the people you work with, that
Right.
like this is serious for you. Like, and it shows in how much like material you're working on and the progress, like the ebb and flow of it,
Yeah.
And so like it totally makes sense when you're saying you want an experience.
Yeah, and to be like to break from the kind of interview thing, I really truly appreciate hearing that it comes across as serious, because I think for a long time, we were talking earlier about one of the things I used to do was I was in this band Milk Bread for a long time, and it was like a hip hop, jazz, funk, R&B thing. I was the MC. I would play saxophone. I would rap. I would do all that stuff, and it was great. And I just felt like at the time we had an opportunity, because it was so different, it was so unique, and it was me and my buddy Dylan were like kind of the principal songwriters, and we had a chance to do something really special. But because I at the time was in my 20s and I kind of lacked seriousness, I was kind of all over the place, as I am now. But there
More
was no,
disciplined.
well, exactly. And I didn't know that there really was a way to do it on your own. I was just kind of, what I would do is we would do something, and I would wait around and say like, oh, they'll find me one day. We'll just make good music and then we'll be found. And I've realized now that it's not really like that. That you have the ability to do these things. Like to get my buddies together, go to the studio and just record a jazz album, which I never thought I'd do, because I really thought I was a terrible musician, player and everything, and I just really just kind of put that on myself. And
Imposter syndrome.
exactly.
Yeah.
And even worse, just like not worthy of doing that.
Yes.
Same thing with like any of this material, like just thinking that, not really having faith and belief in the songs. And then finally, kind of when I turned 30, to be honest, like 3 years ago, kind of flipping that switch and saying like, no, man, like it doesn't matter.
Right.
You can do this if you approach it with a seriousness and a dedication. You can actually create and do beautiful things.
Right.
And no one needs to, there's no gatekeeper. Like, I cut grass during the day so that I don't have to, do all the, like that's what I do during the day. I earn, I can pay for all my responsibilities, all my bills that, my wife and I, anything that we have to pay for, I can, keep up my share of things. And then on the side, I can just totally dedicate it to crafting my own voice. So that's a long way to answer a question that you didn't ask.
Well, you're cutting grass so then you can cut records.
Yeah, yay, there we go. You know what we'll do is I'll just have Eric edit out everything I just said. You just cut in
Synopsis.
and just put it over my mouth going, cutting grass.
No, I appreciate you explaining like that whole process, that evolution for you as an artist, because like my familiarity with the local music scene is such, I see it a lot actually, is people don't believe in themselves or they don't take it seriously and they're not promoting and like they're not sharing, and you are not just sharing, you're sharing other people's stuff too, even because of how you've made these connections. You're a supporter like of the arts in general, not just yourself. And I think that a lot of artists do struggle with trying to put themselves out there, because then what happens if you do succeed? Yeah, you have to show up and do it.
Well, and it's also, in a way, I think sometimes people think like, well, if I try really hard and if I really put myself out there and I'm really, really vocal about it and I'm really public about it that I want to succeed and I don't, what does that say? It's like my wife and I always have this talk, because since I was a little kid, like tiny kid, I've wanted to be a musician. That's all I've wanted to do.
Okay, as little kid what would you think about you now as a musician?
I think I'd be confused. I would like the fact that I styled my hair after like Elvis, like trying to get that kind of thing, because I think he and I would agree, because the first song I ever remember hearing was Hound Dog. Oh, wow. And it like just totally like blasted my brain in two. And so it's like, I think he'd be pretty jazzed about that and the fact that I could play That's All Right Mama. But yeah, I think other than that, I don't think he'd have a clue what was going on. He'd just be like, okay.
How did it start for you? Guitar?
It actually started with saxophone. I was looking for an instrument. I would just loved music. I was all about it. All I wanted to do, but I had no real entry. I grew up in Portsmouth, Rhode Island, and they have a good music thing going. They have a good music program, but it's not like there's really any big performing opportunities or anything. So it just kind of seemed like, it was just out there. It's kind of like small town USA almost, could be anywhere. And there just wasn't really it wasn't like a central hub of the arts. But I found my way to the saxophone through school, and I had fallen in love with it early on, just listening to some music, and then through like private lessons found Sonny Rollins, and then kind of found my guide for the rest of my life. Just like, okay, well, Sonny, I'll just kind of like follow Sonny for a while, and then you kind of go from there. And what really changed my mind was, what really kind of did it for me, because I like playing saxophone, I love performing, but when I realized that you could write your own music and you could perform your own music, that was like a total game changer for me. I listened to I got this Miles Davis record, Birth of the Cool, and there's a song Moon Dreams on there, and then I realized like that it wasn't written by Miles Davis, it was written with Miles Davis by Gil Evans, and it's like, oh, there's this crazy thing that this guy can do. And, it's just like, just a dumb way to be, to think like, oh, well, of course, everyone's writing their own songs, but just not thinking that I could do it. And so I found my way to writing music through like bands in high school, and just, it kind of tumbled out from there, where that's really what I like most of all is writing. And I've kind of found that bug. And the great thing about writing is that, especially if you kind of understand music theory a little bit, even just in a small way, you can really kind of spool out all these different threads, all these of, working on classical music, working on jazz, especially if you have kind of the kind of music theory basis that jazz and jazz training provides. And then you can go into like Americana music and rock and roll, and because you're just picking up bits of language and figuring out like how you can work your own voice, saying the words that like they would, and how you can assimilate and innovate and kind of go from there. So writing was really what kind of solidified things for me, but it was just through school music programs that way.
Yeah. So your creative spark really was set ablaze by having now the tools.
Right. Exactly. Once I learned that there was, again, it's, and I feel like I learned these lessons 5 years before they actually kind of sink in, where I learned like, oh yeah, you can just write your own songs and you can perform them, and you just pick up a guitar and you learn and you just do that. And then it was like, okay, I know that. And then, 5 years later, it's like, oh yeah, why don't I just do that? So about 2015, the band I was previously in kind of dissolved. Just no one was mad. It just like time and constraints and geographic limitations. So then I had always wanted to do this again, because being a fan of Elvis and John Prine and Tom Waits, and just saying like, oh man, well, why don't I just do this? And that was around the time like I discovered like Jason Isbell and Sturgill Simpson and Joni Mitchell. I just kind of dove head first into Joni Mitchell and Tom Waits' catalog and just kind of bathed myself in that. Not that you hear a lot of Joni Mitchell in my stuff now, but she's in there somewhere.
Oh yeah, she's a true inspiration for a lot of people. So what I was going to ask you next is, now that you are already in the throes of your creative pursuits, like what advice would you give to your younger self? Think about it.
So what I would say, because I think about this a lot, because my mind's just buzzing constantly anyway, but I think, especially if I was back at college, what I would do, because like high school, I think like even if I could go back, I'd be like, yeah, whatever. I was like, I don't know if I would take my own advice. I would say like, hey man, you can practice. You should probably learn piano, and I'd be like, okay, cool. And it's like, it would just be like that. But in college, I think what I would say is just start, just make things, write really bad music. Because honestly, like I have a lot of bad music. I was talking with Mike about this earlier. I have most of what I've written is like probably really bad. Like that I wouldn't really want to show anybody, just because it's, unformed. It just like doesn't make sense. It's like I'm searching for something. I don't really quite get there. The melody's not good. But through that, you sort of develop taste. You develop your sort of sense of self, your sense of your own craft and everything. And that's kind of how you get it. You just have to kind of keep doing it. And what I would say is the best way to make sure that you're producing on a regular basis is to be disciplined about it. There's a lot to be said about just showing up every day, sitting in front of a blank page and going, and just kind of trying something, writing down like a note, or sitting with your, like for me, a saxophone or a piano, and saying like, let me just put my hands down, see whatever shape they make, and say like, okay, where can I go with that? Because I always like to say that writing is sort of like these, it's kind of like a Russian doll, almost like a Russian nesting doll, almost like it's these concentrically smaller boxes that you keep putting yourself into. So you start off with this blank page, and the first thing you have to do is you kind of have to define the outer edges of it and say, it's like, okay, well, I'm in A major, let's say. Well, now you have you have your kind of foundational place that you can start from. Or let's say I want to write a song about, like with Madeline, I want to write a song about a person's life that I have no connection to, that is like a completely separate story than my own. And I started thinking like, well, who am I not? I'm not a middle-aged woman. I don't work at a gas station, and I was never a former beauty queen. So right there, not that those all just came, right away, but it was like, they just like in the details, like writing about a middle-aged woman. Well, she's regretful. She's mournful about something in her life. What would that be? Well, because of all these things and her hopes and dreams and yada, yada, yada. You can kind of keep going from there. And there's going to be a lot of days that you just won't get anything. But if you just keep showing up every day and just trying, even if it's, like I write classical music and so I also been working on this piano score for this piano suite I've been doing, and so it's like, for that, it's like 2 measures. If I can get 2 measures today in an hour, if I can get 2 measures, and that is a very small amount of music, but if I can get 2 measures, then great. Or like with the singer-songwriter stuff. If I can just get this stanza, if I can get these 2 lines down, if I can figure out this form, that's it. And then
incremental progress.
Exactly.
Exponential results.
There you go. See, again, we just need to take out everything I do, put it as like a bonus episode on the side. Like, hey, here's every like chunk of word. But
that's just what everything you said, it processed like that.
Yeah.
And exactly what you're describing makes so much sense. The artistic and creative process of anything, it requires you to show up and expect to not do your best until you keep doing that, and then it's something that you're proud of.
Right. And I mean, do you find that in anything that you're doing? Like, what is it?
It's really crazy because I just started a band. I play piano, and we just had our first show on Saturday.
Oh, very cool. Oh, what's the name of the band?
Transmutation.
Oh, there you go. Where'd you play?
And we played at the Providence Innovation District Park, which is at the end of the footbridge.
Oh.
There's a big beer garden, and they set up a stage, and my band played. And again, the name of the band is Transmutation, and the whole point of that name is to describe to people the process of creating music when you have no experience.
Yeah.
You have to transmute all of your fear and anxiety into something that is worth all that effort, that you showed up and you've done the work, honest work of just looking at yourself and being like, nah, I don't like that. That's not how I want to represent myself. Yeah. So it just mirrored everything that you were saying to me. That's why I was like, yes. Exponential results required.
And I think it really comes down to having the discipline. Just there's this great, it's like, it could be erroneous, it's a quote that's kind of attributed to Kobe Bryant, where he talks about how, there's like motivation's great, motivation will get you up, all that stuff, but when motivation dies, that's when discipline takes over. Like, true. It's because you can be motivated for 2 days, 3 days, but your motivation's not going to be the thing that gets you there on day 4, day 5, when you're like, man, screw this, I don't want to be here. It's that discipline of showing up.
Right. And also, I would say the beauty and the gift of the creative ability is that you have now the power to re-impassion yourself and find whatever that was motivating you to begin with. If you lose that, having a gift like playing music helps you find that again. Yeah.
Well, I used to really hate practice. I still do. I don't like. I really am not a good practicer. As like weird and as that may sound, it's like I'm just not a good practicer at my craft and sitting there and really trying to do it. But I find what really works is to change it from the idea of like, oh, I have to practice, to like, as like corny as this may sound, as I get to practice. That kind of like real crunchy granola way of looking at it is like, man, I get to do this. But it changes something that is a obligation into an opportunity, where you get to say, it's like, oh, I have to do this. But now, like, oh man, I'm gonna get to I get to play. I get to sit down with my guitar and just noodle around and say like, oh man, how did this guy do that? And like figure things out and write a new song, and maybe that song is the next, is the next Angel from Montgomery, is the next Make It Rain, is it whatever it is, it could be the next, Carrie, who knows? But for you, it's just making sure you get there and you just put in the time and you just trust the process as much as you can.
Right. Well, I thank you for sharing those tidbits, especially to your, younger self, but to anybody else that's like watching and needed to hear that. Like, I did too. So thank you for sharing. And I just wanted to just ask, is there anything else you want to share with the people watching that you want to promote coming up?
Yeah, there's so this Thursday at the Warren House of Pizza in, you'd guess it, Warren, Rhode Island. I do this thing on the third Thursday of every month, which is called Open Sessions. And the idea behind that is it's essentially an open rehearsal. The kind of conceit is that it's an open rehearsal. What it really is it's a chance for me and my buddies to get together to play my songs, play some new songs, play some covers, without the sort of overbearing like need to be perfectionist about it, which as we talked about earlier, I really do want to aim for being good, I'm very serious when it comes to performing, but I'm also serious about allowing myself to have fun and just create and just be in a room where it's loose. And every month we'll feature a different artist. This time it's Steve Donovan, who you can catch Steve here every Wednesday at the Parlour.
Open mic.
Doing the open mic. But he's a brilliant songwriter on his own right, singer and guitarist. I mean, just really great. So that's from 8 to 10 p.m. It's $10, but you get, the chances like see musicians having fun. You can ask us questions. Like if somebody out there hears me talk about creativity or whatever, or it's just like how I approach things, and you're like, I want to ask Ben another question about that, or tell me that I'm wrong, then that's fine. Come to open sessions. I don't care if you pay the $10, I'll let you tell me I'm wrong. I don't care about that. But it's just an opportunity for us to get out there and every month and to play without the anxiety of like trying to do a performance, which we still go out and play very, serious performances and like very structured and very, thinking about, trying to make the art. But the art here is the looseness, the free, the just openness to it.
Yeah, and I think that because you're putting that energy out there, you're going to attract people who are also trying to do the same thing. And it's really admirable of you to have it just like open, and welcome all people. But I think it can also be intimidating.
Yeah, well, and the thing is like we do the jazz jam, and that's great. Like people can come up with open sessions. It's like you just kind of come, and I mean if there's like somebody I knew and I had a buddy come through, and it's like, okay, he plays drums or something. It's like, I know him. He's played these tunes before. He can hop up and everything. But it's not where it's like an opportunity for people to play. It's not like an open mic. It's just like it's there to just kind of be like this kind of loose thing, so people can see like, oh yeah, these idiots play. These idiots don't know how to rehearse either. So when I go into rehearsal, and we just kind of muck things up, then they'll see that, and it's just a way for us to kind of, I'm really about community, like trying to kind of forge community and trying to bring people together in ways and show each other that there's a very similar language that we all have, and there's very similar pressures that we put on ourselves, and there's very similar ways that we all struggle to make things or just struggle in our lives, which is the great thing about writing songs is that you can approach different people's lives and universal themes that way. And I think that building something like this is important to me because I really want people to come together in a community. And even if it doesn't necessarily strengthen my career, it doesn't like build me up and, gift me with awards and all that stuff, as long as it just, I would really love if there was like a strong community bond so that people will work together. People will work to help each other and raise each other up. And so we can have this kind of like unified, like a rising tide raises all ships sort of mentality of it. Yes.
And I think that is why the Parlour is so lucky to have you as their artist in residency, because obviously that's the entire vibe here that that he's trying to create, is just that interconnectedness that is required for musicians to find their success, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So thank you for being part of it. And thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
No, really, like you're not just even part of it. You're trying to bring others into it too, which is, that's the glue. That's the special sauce. Like,
well, it's like I think there's a great opportunity in Rhode Island that a lot of people don't see. Like we started this conversation talking about how sometimes people are a little wary of success or like wary of their own skill or a little, apprehensive, or maybe they just don't believe in themselves. And I think that it's places like the Parlour, places, things like the open mic, the jam session, that in just like this community of really good open musicians who are just trying to be friendly and trying to be nice to each other and but if we can really get that sense of community, belonging, and uplift, I think that would really go a long way for helping us become the kind of creative capital that we profess right now to be,
Yep.
but really have been straining to get there. So I think, like the mission of AS220 and
Right.
people like the
Or
it's
like my band, the performance we played was for Riot Rhode Island.
yeah, exactly. Another great organization here in Rhode Island that is trying their hardest to, really do something, or like the Wilbury Theater with the Fringe, and there are so many opportunities in Rhode Island to kind of bolster this great arts community,
Right.
but sometimes I think you just need certain people who have nothing better to do than just like all this energy and want to do it. So
Right.
if anybody out there, ever has ideas or anything, come find me at a session, come find me at a gig, and let's talk about it. Because
Right.
I am, like I said, I started as a young kid wanting to be a musician. I've always wanted to do it, and I've gone most of my life not being able to do it full time, and that's really sucks. But at the same time, I feel like now I'm more poised, more so than ever, to actually do something of significance, and to actually, in being serious, in being disciplined, in being determined. I think that there's a chance to, at least, if not get the career, to at least create something really beautiful. And I think I'd like to try to help as many people as they can realize that in themselves too, because I spent so many years just kicking myself in the teeth and not allowing myself to do that. So
Yeah, and I mean, it's not easy. There's a lot of challenges, not just like individually, like personally, that you put
Right.
on yourself out there in trying to do this thing for real. But luckily, we have a lot of resources, and you're one of the few that are taking advantage of them. For example, Motif Magazine, this podcast, the Parlour, the Artist in Residency thing. And I just want to say, like, keep it up, because you are probably impacting people more than you even really see. Don't focus on the numbers of people that come to shows, because you're going to change somebody's like whole perception on if this is something that they can do and pursue. Just by you doing it and being up there, they can see themselves doing that, and that really changes people's lives. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
No, good for
you
you.
as well. And thank you. And honestly, like, thank you to Motif for giving us, this space and, the chance to have this great conversation. I really appreciate your time, and thank you for having me.
Thanks for being on Between the Notes. This is the weekly podcast by Motif Magazine. And we also want to thank the sponsors, particularly the Parlour, as if we didn't shout out the Parlour enough already. And then also our sponsors, Rhode Island Indoor Karting and Gray Sail Brewing. And there's one more. Trinity Beer. Oh, yes, Trinity Beer Garden. How could I forget? Love them. Support them. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you next week.